What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another award-eligible edition of Touchdown BC. Which award that is, it's yet to be determined. I'm Andrew Wadden. Despite that, we got a jam-packed show once again this month. Gonna fill you in on all the happenings at the annual Provincial Football Conference, including a special interview from longtime BC Lions broadcaster Julio Caravata, who sits down with NFL, CFL, and NBA player agent Zeke Sandu. I'll get you up to date with which BC-born players are taking part in the annual East-West Bowl, plus who the latest players from across the province to commit to UBC, SFU, and elsewhere in the CIS. But first, we've been telling you about this event for a few months now. April 14th, it all went down in downtown Vancouver. The annual Orange Helmet Awards took place at the Westin Bayshore, with the event raising an incredible $60,000 for community football programs across the province. The event, now in its 12th year, recognizes those at the coaching level who have dedicated their careers to community football programs with the Community Coach of the Year, Scholastic Coach of the Year, and the Bob Ackles Lifetime Achievement Award. BC Community Football Association President Joe Gluska, who was honored with the Bob Ackles Award. Gluska has been involved in amateur football in British Columbia for over 50 years as a player, coach, and executive. Mark Townsend from the Mount Douglas Rams took home the Scholastic Coach of the Year award, while Kendall Gross from Kelowna Minor Football was presented with the Community Coach of the Year award. Here's a look at the rest of this year's award winners. The keynote speaker at the Orange Helmet Awards was former Calgary Stampeder and San Francisco 49ers, and a host of other NFL teams, quarterback Jeff Garcia, who spoke to the packed house about his journey from the CFL to the NFL.
In any sense of the matter, and not saying that I have ever settled for being in the Canadian Football League, and I've told Wally and I've told many coaches that if the NFL never happened for me, I was happy. I loved playing in the CFL. I loved the game. I had great relationships in Calgary, but this was the next journey in my life. This was the next opening, the next opportunity. And I went after it.
The CFL Scouting Bureau released its final rankings, and topping that list is a Vancouver product whose roots run deep in Canadian football. Former Vancouver College standout Christian Covington is the #1 ranked prospect heading into the draft. Christian's father, Grover, is a 4-time CFL All-Star and a member of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Covington is not the only BC product in the top 10, as Port Coquitlam's Suk Chung from the Calgary Dinos is ranked 6th, and Coquitlam's Lamar Durant from SFU, who's the highest ranked receiver, is ranked 8th. The CFL draft takes place on May 12th. The 13th annual East-West Bowl, which features the top senior prospects in the CIS, takes place on Saturday, May 9th at Percival Molson Memorial Stadium on the campus of McGill University in Montreal. The week-long event showcases CIS players who are eligible for the 2016 CFL Draft. Representing BC on Team West is Nanaimo's Dustin Peterson, a receiver with the Manitoba Bisons, and Delta's Ethan Sandowski, a defensive lineman at UBC. Sandowski's UBC teammate Boyd Richardson is also participating in the game. New Westminster's Brandon Lay is the lone BC-born player playing for the East Side. Lay, quarterback for the Mount Allison Mounties, backed his side to an undefeated regular season in 2014 while leading the Mounties to a second straight AUS title. Some news from Burnaby Mountain now. The SFU clan have rounded out its coaching staff by adding a new defensive coordinator and a couple of familiar faces into the mix. Joining the clan is Jamie Hill, who comes in after 2 seasons as the DC at Portland State University of the NCAA Division I Big Sky Conference. Also making their way up the mountain are SFU alumni and BC high school football legendary coaches Dennis Kelly and Tom Kadaba. Kelly has been the head coach at WJ Mowat since 1987, while Kadaba has been co-head coach for the Terry Fox Ravens since 1999. A few months ago, we filled you in that JC Boyce was the new head coach of the West Shore Rebels. Well, at the provincial conference, our man in the field, Jim Mullen, grabbed the new head coach to chat about his new team.
JC, tell me about the road that you took to get to this job with the West Shore Rebels. You've got quite the diverse background, don't you?
Yeah. I'm from the U.S. originally, and married a lovely Victoria girl. And she'd originally moved down to the U.S. with me, but had some health issues. And even though I had great insurance, she ultimately had to go back to Victoria. We lived apart for a couple years, and that just wasn't working. So I moved to the island and started helping coach Belmont football. Really enjoyed helping some great coaches there turn that program around, and I saw the Rebels from afar. They kind of reached out to me a few times, and the timing just wasn't right for me. But now, it's just the right place, the right time, and we're really excited. I still travel about 100+ days a year down in the U.S. I work full time for the National Football Academies and Athlete Development Evaluation Program. But we're kind of slow in the fall, and that allows me to coach the Rebels there. I'm very excited to be joining that program.
What do you do specifically with the National Football Academy?
I am a quarterback developer, biomechanics expert, and we basically take high school age athletes, college age athletes, and professionals, and we just clean up every aspect of their game as a quarterback. So I make a living training quarterbacks.
Now let's talk a bit about the West Shore program. Behind the scenes, in terms of organization, much better organized than in years past. Did that help influence your decision?
Unequivocally. Great board. Really committed to turn that program around. Really create an environment where kids can develop and be joining the family. They got the executive of the year last year for what they did. There was a lot of people that, frankly didn't think the program was going to exist. And Lise Pastro, Jason Sperling, and honestly, a whole bunch of the Belmont parents that had helped us turn that program around had jumped in. So at that point, it made it really easy for me to join them. They're doing a great job. They've got kids involved. They understand how important it is to be in the community. They're learning to be appreciative and thankful of the community. And yeah, it's really starting to go well.
How's recruiting going? Because you have to focus on island kids, but at the same time, to be competitive in the BCFC, sometimes you need to widen your footprint a little bit in terms of...
Absolutely. We're looking to bring some off-island kids. Right now, we're really focused on the island kids. We've got a lot of kids that haven't played the last couple years that have came back to the program, so that's very, very, rewarding. And we've got a couple kids from Alberta, a couple kids from Saskatchewan, one kid from Manitoba. So this year, to be honest, I'm a little behind the 8 ball. I mean, I've traveled a lot in the U.S. while I'm very experienced at developing and quarterbacks running large programs. I don't have a lot of key relationships in Canada yet, so we're establishing those relationships. We're earning coaches' trust, owning parents' trust, and this first year we got a few kids coming out, and we'll bring in more kids, but we've got a lot of work to do on the recruiting front, to be honest.
Who are the key returning players that you have?
Well, I'm not really prepared to mention any names, any kids singularly, just because I've taken the time to meet each and every kid on the roster personally, and I'm really excited to have them out. But with a whole new system, virtually a whole new coaching staff, a whole new approach, philosophy, I'm not prepared to name any kids, but I'll tell you, we had 40 kids the other night at our speed and agility and quickness training, and they were working. So as a whole, there's a bunch of guys that are excited to be competitive, and they're doing the work.
Tell me about the competition that you guys always seem to have with the guys up island, the VI Raiders. There seems to be an opening right now as the Raiders are an organization in transition, and your organization seems to have that keyword, which is organization, for the first time in a long time. Do you see a path here where you can challenge those guys?
Well, we certainly intend to. We want to compete with everybody, and certainly, we'd love to be able to really compete against the Raiders. They're well ran. They've got some new coaches I know real well, and I have a lot of respect for them. They're good coaches. But yeah, we're competitive. I'm a competitive person. Our board is very competitive, and I think we're going to be very relevant in those games. Maybe we can surprise some people this year.
With an American background, what is your take on junior football, and where does it fall into the development system?
I love it. I love it. I wish they had the opportunity for this in the kids. I think Canadian athletes are very, very fortunate to be able to do that. In the U.S., once you go post high school, your eligibility clock begins. So tremendous reward. I really want to start to get kids into the Rebels that want to play for the Rebels, get excellent coaching, get excellent support. kind of a mind, body, and soul approach so they can go on and play CIS level, and even in some cases go on and play NCAA level. We have some tremendous connections in both CIS programs. I've done a lot of work with the University of Manitoba, University of Alberta, some with Calgary, and of course tons of connections in the U.S. So those athletes that are looking for opportunities to develop, we can definitely bring them in. Basically, you know, if they want to know what it's like to train as a U.S. NCAA athlete or CIS athlete, we're going to be able to provide that to them.
JC, thanks very much.
Hey,
Appreciate
thank you.
your time.
All right, appreciate it.
When we come back, we'll find out if the life of an NFL player agent is really like that Jerry Maguire movie depicted. Show me the money. Touchdown BC. We'll be right back.
Crown Produce secures produce locally and from around the world for Canadian retailers. Crown Produce is also proud to secure sponsorship of University football on Shaw. Crown Produce, supporting Canadian retailers and Canadian amateur football.
Hey, look at that, you came back, and it's a good thing you did because you don't want to miss out what's coming up next. As I mentioned earlier, we have a special interview from BC Lions broadcaster Julio Caravata, who sat down at the Provincial Football Conference with NFL player agent Zeke Sandu. Sandu is a native of BC, having grown up in Vancouver. He played high school football in the Lower Mainland and in the Canada West Conference in the CIS. This is just part one of what was a lengthy discussion about everything ranging from Sandu lying to his football coach to play volleyball to how he lands some of the biggest names in the NFL to his agency. Sit back, grab your popcorn, and enjoy.
Thank you, guys. Just like Julio here, I'm very honored and humbled that I was asked to speak at this event. At first, when I was asked, when Dino gave me a call, I thought of all the reasons I couldn't speak. NFL draft coming up, family commitment, my son's football game, which I did miss today, so I'm in big trouble. Then I thought about all the reasons I should come back. What BC football provided me, the memories, the foundation, the opportunities, the friendships that last a lifetime. And it's men like you that lead our youth. Men like you that are going to be the dream builders. As I've gone through this journey, I've seen too many things. Every success story starts with a dream. Every kid has a dream. But we need men like you to be able to help fulfill those dreams. And I commend each and every one of you.
You go to John Oliver, you play your high school football, then what happens? Where does your life lead you after that?
Well, this should be an interesting story since Coach Turner's here. The journey wasn't really made out that way. I actually played high school volleyball, which was first my true love, I guess you could say. People probably look at me like you're 5'9", 5'10". It was actually pretty good. But I also loved the game of football. And I remember one day my senior year, I was actually the starting corner, and I decided to tell Coach Turner I had to miss practice because I had a doctor's appointment. In reality, I left football practice and I went to the volleyball game. The volleyball team didn't mind me missing practices, they just wanted me to play. Well, I ended up getting a red card, and then they report that to your athletic director at your school. Well, lo and behold, the athletic director was Coach Turner. So I get suspended. Then he said he's going to bring me back, and he made me run, I think it was 9 times around the field, give and take, 9 times with a bag on my shoulders. It really, at that time, you're looking at life and you're looking at like, wow, you know, is this really happening? But still not truly appreciating and understanding the lesson you were actually being taught at the time. Now I can reflect back and seeing the lessons that you learn, because as young men, we are our word. It doesn't matter all the materialistic things we own in the world, all of us sitting here. If you give your word to the man next to you, that speaks volumes. As long as you fulfill and hold up to that word. My journey takes me from there to Red Deer, Alberta for half a semester to finish off school. From there, I really knew I wanted to go play college football. I got a full-ride scholarship at Eastern Arizona Junior College in Thatcher, Arizona. And you speak about a culture shock. You come from Vancouver, Canada to Thatcher, Arizona. It's probably like 1,500 to 2,500 people. And I took the Greyhound from Bellingham all the way to Arizona. So it was a wake-up call. From there, an opportunity provided itself. I actually finished JUCO, came back to Arizona, Vancouver, played for the Trojans for 1 year, then went to Western New Mexico University. Played for a year and a half there, and again, it was a typical young man story. I think as men we can relate to this. We want instant gratification. I'm not playing, I want it now, this isn't happening, I'm gonna move on. It was a story of kind of a cycle, a vicious cycle, instead of having somebody tell you, hey, slow down, wait your turn. Because we always think we base success off what we think success is. Hey, the guy playing, I need to be like the guy playing. If I'm not playing, I'm not successful. But in turn, when you even watch the NFL draft, the CFL draft, there's guys that have been sitting on rosters for 3 years, then finally get their turn to play, and now they're the man. My story takes me to the University of Manitoba, where I finished off with Coach Brian Dobie. And from there, I had a wake-up call. It's either you can have an opportunity to play for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It was $27,000. I think it was 96, 97. Will can probably attest to it. Or I moved back to Arizona, and I started selling cars, and one of my best friends asked me to represent him in the CFL draft. And that was the next step.
You are the owner of Elite Athlete Management.
Yes.
Yes. And you represent a number, well, you're a registered NFL agent, registered yes. NBA agent,
yes.
CFL agent, yes. And Major League Baseball?
No.
No Major League Baseball. But you, you have a number of very, very high profile and Super Bowl champ and Pro Bowl clients. One, I think that we all probably, we know all of them because I can list them, and you can probably, I'd like you to list probably because I don't want to make sure I miss anybody. But Odell Beckham is Zeke's client, and Odell Beckham speaks for himself. One of the first-round pick last year by the New York Giants. So maybe you can fill everybody else in on some of your other clients.
I think from Odell Beckham, we have Ego Ferguson Jr., who was a second-round pick from LSU last year with the Bears. Over here in Seattle, we have Ricardo Lockett, the wide receiver, Alvin Bailey, the offensive lineman. Marquette King is actually the only black punter in the NFL with the Oakland Raiders. We have Aaron Lynch, the defensive end outside linebacker with the San Francisco 49ers. Jordan Poyer, a corner with the Cleveland Browns. I'm trying to forget. Go through the list.
You have, I also, Christian Covington, which a lot of people played at BC, yes. Vancouver College, yeah.
So Christian, in this year's upcoming draft, we have 10 players, and Christian is one of those players, and it was kind of it's an exciting thing because being a local Vancouver-born agent, I wanted Christian Covington. It was a must. I could not lose him. And there's no way I was going to allow another agent to represent Christian Covington if we're both from BC. And it was a battle till the end, but it was a good one to win.
I'm curious, and I'm sure everybody else is curious, when you get a client like Beckham, like, you obviously don't get a guy like that a week before the combine or 2 months before the season ends. Walk us through kind of the process of that relationship building that you have to go through, because I think I think a lot of people think that, oh yeah, the agents show up, a guy's senior year, but clearly I don't think that's the case. I mean, you've probably got to have your eye on these guys at the high school level and as they move through college, and you've got to, be able to pick these guys out at an early stage.
I think there are a lot of guys that start in high school. With Beckham, it was interesting. I mean, I have an infatuation with receivers because I played receiver. After his sophomore year, we're leading into, the draft was just finished, last year's draft just finished, and we were leading into the next year, and we're going through all the talent that was top-ranked talent from NFL personnel. NFL personnel put out a list every year called the Blesto National. And the Blesto National reports come out, they list all the top players in the country for the following year. But one thing, when I saw a lot of Beckham highlights, I started watching more and more of his film. And this was in May of last year, the year before. And I'm watching his film, and I'm looking at his routes, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, I've never seen a player run routes like this. And he was in college. I remember I told Will, I said, wait till you see this kid, and everybody's thinking I'm crazy, like I have an infatuation with this kid. And so I reached out to Odell Beckham's father in June, do a presentation for him. He liked what he heard, went down and met with Odell. And I remember sitting there with Odell at trying to remember the name of the hotel, but it was in Baton Rouge. He comes down, we're in the lobby, we're taking him through the presentation. I asked him a question. I said, do you want to be great or do you want to be rich? It's interesting because you're wearing a purple hat, and he says the exact words on that hat. He looks at me, starts playing with his little goatee, with a straight face, and he goes, I want to be legendary. At the time, you're thinking, well, this kid is really, he gets it, right? Because you hear a lot of kids say, I want to be rich. They lose focus. We built a relationship through that year. I told him he'd be the only receiver I was going to recruit. We had phone calls over and over during the year. Questions that if I told you he asked, you'd be like, there's no way. He'd ask me, do you really think I'm good? Why do you think I'm good? Do you think I'm better than Jarvis Landry? And him and Jarvis are like brothers. But there was that relationship. Do you think I'm better? Why do you think I'm better? What are teams saying? We built that relationship through that whole year. It's before he even did anything that junior year. He had all the top agencies you can think of, from Peyton Manning's agent all the way down to Reggie Bush, Michael Vick's agent. All the top ones. And he goes to me, Zeke, you're my guy. He said, the only thing I want, just get me in the first round. At the time, I'm thinking, no problem. But inside, you're like, okay, that's a lot of pressure. You know, the kid, though, in itself, from that process, you build that relationship. And a lot of my success stories come with signing players is really based off a relationship. But building it from prior to that year all the way through.
Now that is some interesting stuff from Zeke Sandu. Thanks again to Julio Caravata for hosting the interview. We will have part 2 in next month's show. You definitely do not want to miss out on that. So that wraps up yet another off-season edition of Touchdown BC from here in the Crown Countdown U studios. Many thanks to Jim Mullen earlier in the show. I'm Andrew Wadden. Be sure to check in with Crown Countdown U in 2 weeks' time, as we will have all the highlights from the East-West Bowl. See you again in 1 month's time.